Welcome back to Pokemon Episode Summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 149, The Firing Squad. The episode begins with Ash and the gang having arrived at a Pokemon Center, and Ash proceeds to call Professor Oak on the computer so he can send back his Tauros. With Ash informing Oak that his Tauros had won the Tauros competition. Oak agrees to take Tauros back, but pleads that Ash let him keep Heracross for a little while longer as well. Despite this meaning that Ash would have less Pokemon on hand, he agrees with Oak, as Oak justifies his want by stating that Heracross was a very interesting research subject. So, Ash sends back his Tauros and tells his Heracross to be good to Professor Oak. Hopefully it was, and it wasn't like Muck. Even though Muck does love Oak, it just has a weird way of showing it. Just then, Nurse Joy comes up to Ash after having examined all of his Pokemon, and congratulates him on having Pokemon that were in such great condition. Brock, being the simp that he was, asks Nurse Joy if he could examine him as well, likely implying some sex, and this scares Nurse Joy as she excuses herself from Brock's advances by revealing that she had to instead examine some Pokemon for an event called the Fire and Rescue Grand Prix. Ash and Misty try and question what this event entailed, however, Nurse Joy was too terrified and she ran off too quick. God damn it, Brock. Anyways, Ash and the gang then decided to go find out what the event was for themselves, as they walked around town to find out, and eventually stumbled across the event stadium that had a poster advertising it, revealing that it was a firefighting contest specifically designed for water types, obviously. Although trainers weren't restricted to just water types, but Misty insisted that Ash would have a tough time when he suggested that he wanted to enter, stating that Ash only had one water type Pokemon, being Squirtle. Ash really wanted to enter though, and he wasn't worried about Squirtle being at a disadvantage, being by itself, as he planned to just use Misty's water Pokemon like her Psyduck and Staryu. When he tells her this, she gets pissed off at the fact that Ash thought that he could simply just order her Pokemon around despite not being their trainer, but just then, Psyduck pops out and goes up to Ash, indicating that it wanted to enter. Ash takes this as confirmation that Psyduck wanted Ash to order it around, but Misty simply retorted that Psyduck was too dumb to know anything, so it didn't know what it wanted. As Psyduck continues to stand there looking at Ash though, Misty eventually concedes and agrees to let Ash use her water Pokemon in the competition. Ash and the gang then go to sign up for the Grand Prix. Just then though, none other than Captain Aiden shows up with his Wartortle squad. That's right, he wasn't just a character of the day after all. Brock questions who Captain Aiden was due to him never meeting Captain Aiden since he wasn't with Ash and the gang during the Orange Islands arc, but admits that although he's never met them, he could see that the Wartortle were extremely skilled, likely due to his breeder intuition. But anyways, Misty then fills Brock in on what he missed when he wasn't a main cast member, stating how Squirtle and Wartortle had saved a boy from a huge fire in an apartment, and added that Team Wartortle was the best firefighting force in the Orange Islands, along with the help of their own Blastoise and Squirtle. Aiden then reveals that not only were the Wartortle squad the best firefighting squad in the Orange Islands, but they were also the best in the competition since they were the returning champions from last year. Ash then sends out his Squirtle to go greet the Wartortle squad, and the leader Wartortle and Squirtle, having been reunited, happily shake hands. Man, it's awesome to see a character of the day actually return, man. This is so cool. Aiden then suggests that him and Ash and the gang go to the training center together, where all of the other trainers and their water Pokemon were practicing. Ash countered that he had to register first though, with Misty butting in, claiming that Ash may not even be able to enter because he might be too late. However, Aiden, being the former champion, was able to pull some strings and contact the management team of the tournament and convince them to let Ash join, even though he was definitely late for entry. He managed to convince them by stating that he knew Ash and he knew that him and his Pokemon were good firefighters. When Ash and the gang arrive at the training center with Aiden, they immediately spot all of the other trainers with their water Pokemon practicing their water guns. There were Poliwhirls, Quagsires, Marils, Vaporeons, and even Golducks. As Brock examined all these Pokemon, he stated that Ash may not even have a chance. However, Ash and his Pokemon, especially Squirtle and Pikachu, were confident as ever. That's right, Pikachu was going to enter as well, despite not being a water Pokemon, with Ash believing that it could put out the flames by kicking up dirt with its tail. Squirtle then looked around to examine his competition as well, and he spotted none other than his former Squirtle squad and Officer Jenny. Officer Jenny had currently noticed that the Squirtle squad was nervous and tried to give him a pep talk of encouragement, saying that they would do perfectly fine as long as they worked as a team, but the Squirtle was still nervous. They soon got a bit happier though, as they looked over and spotted Squirtle, and Squirtle ran to them eagerly, and they greeted each other, slapping each other on the tail. It had been quite a while since the Squirtle squad had seen their old leader, and they were happy to be reunited. Ash and the gang then reintroduced themselves to the Squirtle squad as well, also saying hello to Jenny, leading Jenny to thank them once again for all of their help from turning the Squirtle from delinquents to the trusty Squirtle squad that they were now. Captain Aiden then comes up and introduces himself to Officer Jenny and the Squirtle squad as well, and tells them that they were the returning champions from last year. Upon hearing this, the Squirtle squad proceeded to get nervous once again that they would have to face the returning champions, and this led Ash's Squirtle to get unimpressed, as he believed that his squad should put on a bigger game face. The Squirtle squad sees Squirtle's disappointment and proceed to reach their hands out to shake the Wartortle's hands, which the Wartortle accept. Jenny and Aiden then shake hands as well, hoping that they would face each other, although the Squirtle squad probably weren't hoping that they would be facing the Wartortle. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was spying through the training room window, and upon seeing all the water Pokemon, they decided that they were going to steal them all, and give some of them to Giovanni, keep some for themselves, and sell the rest for money. Since there were so many of them, they could do a variety of things with them. Upon noticing that Ash's Pikachu was entering as well, they obviously got even more excited. Meanwhile, back in the training room, there was still some time before the competition started, so Squirtle was taking the opportunity to catch up with his old squad and hear about all the adventures that they had had while Squirtle had been gone. Just then, Officer Jenny suggested to Aiden that both squads practice together and essentially have a little mini competition before the competition actually started. Aiden agreed and stated that they should do some target practice with their water guns as he directed his war turtle to one of the practice fields and the Squirtle Squad took the field beside it. It was going to be a competition to see which team could knock down the most targets, and the Squirtle Squad were obviously nervous, as you would expect, being intimidated by the War Turtle Squad to the point where they couldn't even start their practice. To be fair though, I'd say that this concern was warranted, as Aiden skillfully commanded his War Turtle to focus on each target and work as a team, listening to the lead War Turtle for strategy. After doing as Aiden suggested, each of the War Turtle were able to take down one target at a time with super powerful water guns that were extremely well coordinated. When the Squirtle Squad finally got up enough courage to actually start practicing, their nervousness still threw them off, as they were all out of focus and couldn't even hit a single target, being unable to work in a coordinated fashion like the War Turtle. Ash and Jenny saw the Squirtle Squad's nervousness, but urged them on anyways, but Brock justified that the Squirtle Squad's nervousness was actually warranted, since the War Turtle Squad was such a high-ranking team. Although Squirtle was already mad at the Squirtle Squad for being nervous to begin with, Brock's comment was finally what set him off the most. He was done with the Squirtle Squad humiliating themselves, being the nervous wrecks that they were, and proceeded to go up to them and step on each of their tails to snap them out of it, and then ordered them to attack in coordination. Because of Ash's Squirtle's leadership and reassurance, the Squirtle Squad were finally able to start hitting targets in a coordinated manner, and successfully managed to knock down them all, just as the War Turtle Squad did. This caused Squirtle and the Squirtle Squad to celebrate, now being way more confident than they were, now that their leader was back. Aiden was severely impressed with the Squirtle Squad and their ability to suddenly make a huge comeback, and Ash was surprised that his Squirtle was still able to lead the Squirtle Squad so well after all this time. Brock noted that no matter how much time they spent apart, Squirtle would never forget its leadership skills, and it would never forget the bond that it had with the Squirtle Squad, so that allowed it to continue to instruct them extremely well. Essentially, Ash's Squirtle was the glue that held the Squirtle Squad together. After the training session had concluded, it was time for the Grand Prix to finally begin, and the first round was a battle between Ash's team, which consisted of his Pikachu, his Squirtle, and Misty's Staryu and her Psyduck, and they were facing off against a team entirely comprised of Muck, with the goal of the round being to extinguish a house fire before the other team could. Misty, Brock, Captain Aiden, and Officer Jenny all watched from the stands as Misty encouraged Ash's team to show the Muck how awesome water Pokemon were, because, she wanted them to prove it so that her bias of water Pokemon could be confirmed. The houses were then lit on fire, and Ash's team got to work immediately, with Squirtle and Staryu firing water gun, and Pikachu using its tail to fling dirt at the fire, just as Ash was expecting it to do. Psyduck was doing absolutely nothing, but because of how dumb it was, that was probably for the best, as Ash's team was doing quite well without it. When Psyduck did eventually try to help, this was proven, as it immediately intercepted Staryu's water gun by accident, in the process getting blasted into the fiery house. Thankfully, Squirtle rushed in to save Psyduck before it got burned to a crisp in the fire, and the Staryu proceeded to go up to Psyduck and wash off all of its smoke stains, feeling bad for accidentally hitting Psyduck, even though it was totally Psyduck's fault. Unfortunately, although Psyduck was saved, this obviously caused Squirtle and Staryu to be distracted, and Pikachu just couldn't put out the fire all on its own, so this allowed the Muck to catch up and successfully put out the fire first by all huddling together and smothering the fire with their bodies. A disappointed Ash then returned to the stands, having lost in the first round. Damn, I guess your protagonist power couldn't save you here. Anyways, the next match then began, and it was the Squirtle Squad and Officer Jenny facing off against a team of Golduck, which Aiden informed everyone was actually the second place competitors in last year's competition. After seeing how the Squirtle Squad reacted to his War Turtle Squad being the champions, Aiden worried that the Squirtle Squad would experience a similar nervousness when going up against the second place team. Ash assured Aiden that the Squirtle Squad would be fine, but sure enough, the Squirtle Squad were basically as nervous as they were when fighting against the War Turtle Squad. Especially because they didn't have Ash's Squirtle to help them lead this time. Despite their immense nervousness, the round then began, and the Golduck team wasted no time extinguishing their burning house fire, doing extremely coordinated attacks, with each Golduck attacking one side of their burning house. The Squirtle Squad, on the other hand, were too nervous to even move. Thankfully, Officer Jenny managed to talk some sense into them and ordered them to trudge forward, and they reluctantly did, although they were so nervous still that they tripped over each other while they ran, falling to the ground. Even when they managed to get up and start firing water guns of their own, they ended up being as uncoordinated as they originally were. This allowed the Golduck team to take a very strong lead, which caused Ash, Squirtle, and Pikachu to panic immensely. Jenny tried her best to order all the Squirtle to do coordinated attacks, but the Squirtle couldn't focus and thus weren't listening to her. This finally made Ash, Squirtle, and Pikachu step in, not being able to see the Squirtle Squad fail like this. So, Ash came up with an idea to have Pikachu use Thunder Shock on the Squirtle to snap them out of their nervousness. Once the Squirtle were able to focus on human words again, Ash told them that the only way that they were going to stand a chance at winning was if they had their leader. Squirtle agreed, although it was nervous that this would be considered against the rules. However, Ash explained that the rules didn't matter right now, and that its squad needed it, and that's what was important. Yeah, let's go, Ash, encouraging cheating, let's go. But thankfully, it didn't seem as though this was against the rules, as the judges probably just thought that that Squirtle was a member of the Squirtle Squad, which it technically still was, I guess. Sure enough, because of Squirtle's leadership, the Squirtle Squad are able to make a massive comeback, because although they were losing heavily, they managed to pull off the win, although it was close. Squirtle and the Squirtle Squad cheer extremely loudly at their win, with Nurse Joy congratulating them, stating that Ash's Squirtle was a natural-born leader, and yeah, it definitely was. Just then, though, this happy moment was cut off, as the fire of the house that the Squirtle Squad had put out suddenly reignited, and proceeded to explode, blasting away the Squirtle Squad. All of this was caused by Team Rocket, who had showed up in their new machine known as the Torture Scorcher, that currently was shooting flames out of its arms. Team Rocket proceeded to do their motto, stating their plan to capture all the water Pokemon and Pikachu as they began to fire flames at Squirtle, Officer Jenny, Ash, and Pikachu, along with the Squirtle Squad. Thankfully, though, Aiden then commanded his Team Wartortle to help out Ash and Pikachu and the Squirtles by having them shoot their water guns at Team Rocket's machine. Unfortunately, even the Grand Prix's former champions weren't enough to take out the machine, as James simply increased the amount of fire coming out of the arms with a button. This led all of the other competitors and their water Pokemon to come out onto the field as well and fire their water guns. However, this was just as Team Rocket had planned, as now Meowth could fire a net from their machine and trap every single Pokemon in it, including Pikachu, with the sole exception of Ash's Squirtle and the Squirtle Squad. Ash immediately tries to go up to Pikachu in his net in an attempt to save him, but Officer Jenny pulls him back right as Team Rocket proceeds to fire flames all over the stadium, almost hitting Ash in the process. So if Officer Jenny didn't pull him back, Ash probably would have fucking died. But anyways, these flames go all over the stadium, fucking basically destroying it. And Ash then notices that Squirtle and the Squirtle Squad weren't captured, and he instructs his Squirtle to lead the Squirtle Squad so that they could stop Team Rocket, stating that they were the only ones who could now. Because of this, Squirtle agrees to once again lead the Squirtle Squad, as they even put on their classic glasses from back in the day, and huddle up to make a plan, stating each other that they were going to be coordinated no matter what. The Squirtle Squad then proceeded to put their plan into action as they simply aimed their water guns at the Torture Scorcher. Unfortunately, Team Rocket tried to retaliate by stepping on the Squirtle, but because of Ash's Squirtle's leadership, all of the Squirtle Squad were able to dodge the attack, leading Brock, Misty, Officer Jenny, Aiden, and just fucking everyone in general to commend the Squirtle Squad on their immense teamwork. The Torture Scorcher continues to try to step on the Squirtle Squad as the Squirtle Squad continue to dodge, moving out of the way extremely fast, and this causes Team Rocket to get dizzy while they were driving the Torture Scorcher, causing them to fall over in the cockpit, which in turn causes the machine to fall over. Squirtle then uses a Skull Bash to crash through the machine's cockpit window, therefore coming face to face with the fallen over Team Rocket, leading Squirtle to simply blast them against the wall with his water gun, and then stomp on all of the controls, destroying them and sending sparks flying all throughout the cockpit, eventually spreading to the outside of the machine as well. The controls being destroyed, in turn, frees all of the captured water Pokemon from the net, which was linked to the machine. So since the machine was fucked, the net was fucked. Seeing that the sparks were likely to cause the machine to explode, Squirtle escaped from the cockpit and tried to return to the rest of the Squirtle Squad, but Team Rocket then got back up from the water gun attack and tried once more to blast everyone with fire, somehow managing to control the machine to get back up on its feet. I don't know how the fuck they were able to do this, but it didn't matter as their efforts were futile. Since before the fire could make contact, Pikachu and Ash's Squirtle teamed up to use Thunderbolt and Water Gun respectively, and the two attacks combined, sending Team Rocket blasting off, along with the remains of their machine. Although Team Rocket was dealt with, the stadium was fucked, so the Grand Prix couldn't continue on until it was fixed by construction workers. Thankfully, construction workers were on the scene immediately, but this still gave Ash enough time to talk to his Squirtle, congratulating it on its efforts of leading the Squirtle Squad, and suggest to it that Squirtle actually leave Ash and go back to lead the Squirtle Squad full-time. Squirtle was obviously hesitant at this, not wanting to leave Ash and all of his Pokemon, and Ash was obviously hesitant too. I mean, he loves Squirtle, they've been together since almost day one, but Ash made sure to keep a smile on his face to make sure that Squirtle knew that it was okay for him to leave. Ash's encouragement, along with the hopeful looks of the Squirtle Squad, who really wanted their leader back, was enough to convince Squirtle to do as Ash requested and leave his team, fully rejoining the Squirtle Squad. Soon, the stadium was repaired so the competition could begin again, with Squirtle now leading the Squirtle Squad permanently. Because of this allowed the Squirtle Squad to gain a whole bunch of confidence, no longer being nervous whatsoever, in turn allowing them to make it all the way to the finals. Guess what other team made it to the finals though? Aiden and his Wartortle Squad, meaning that the finals were between both squads. The match's challenge was to retrieve a Clefairy doll from a burning building as if it was a real Clefairy, and also extinguish the building's fire in the least amount of time. From the stands, Ash, Misty, and Brock were watching, with them all cheering for different sides of the competition. Ash was cheering for the Squirtle Squad, Misty was cheering for the Wartortle Squad to show their support for Aiden, because, you know, even though they were competing, Aiden was still a friend of theirs, and Brock, on the other hand, was simply just cheering for Officer Jenny, being the simp that he was. The challenge began with both squads' leaders being the ones to retrieve the dummies, as the rest of the members tried to put out the fire. Eventually, Squirtle and the Wartortle leader walked out of the houses with the dummies successfully, and then shouted orders for the rest of the Squirtle and Wartortle to continue putting out the fire best they could. The round was neck and neck the entire time, up until the very end, where it seemed as though the houses were both entirely extinguished at the exact same time, meaning that it was a tie. Just kidding, because when they looked closer at the footage and looked at the times, the Squirtle Squad had actually managed to win by only 1 second. They won in 3 minutes and 53 seconds, and the Squirtle Squad won in 3 minutes, 54 seconds, and 2 milliseconds. So the Squirtle Squad kicked ass. As the crowd cheered with immense joy, the Squirtle Squad and Officer Jenny also jumped up with joy, cheering for their own win. Aiden then congratulated Jenny and the Squirtle Squad on their victory as well, commanding his Wartortle Squad to give them a salute of respect, which they did, and Officer Jenny and the Squirtle returned, showing a mutual respect between both squads. With the tournament complete, it was now time for Officer Jenny and the Squirtle Squad to depart, along with Ash's Squirtle as their leader once again. Ash congratulated his Squirtle on a job well done, and wished him good luck fighting fires, telling him to be careful. Officer Jenny then thanked Ash for being so willing to give up Squirtle from his team, knowing how much Ash cared for it, but stating that this was probably for the best, as it meant that the Squirtle Squad could fight fires even better now. After saying goodbye to Ash, Squirtle then said goodbye to Pikachu, Misty, and Brock, along with Ash's other Pokemon such as Chikorita and Cyndaquil. As for Bulbasaur, Squirtle didn't want to just say goodbye to it, as they had been friends for an extremely long time, both being OGs of Ash's team, so Squirtle wanted to send it off with a respectful handshake. However, Bulbasaur initially declined. This was only out of sadness for Squirtle's departure though, and Bulbasaur eventually extended a vine, shaking Squirtle's hand, finally accepting that his best friend had to leave. Damn, I'm gonna cry, man. The episode then ends with Squirtle and the Squirtle Squad riding off on Jenny's motorcycle with her, with Ash yelling out to Squirtle, assuring him that they would always be friends no matter what and no matter where the Squirtle was. Aww. Ash then reminisced on all of his memories with Squirtle from episode 11 or 12, whichever one it fucking was, up till now, as the episode came to a close. Damn, that's another OG Ash member gone. Now the only OG Ash team member left is fucking Pikachu and Bulbasaur.